Welcome to First United Presbyterian Church of Dale City in Virginia. My name is Pastor Adam, and I want to introduce you to Pastor Tara.
Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, from Presbytery. I would say her last name, but you guys know me in names, so I'm going to butcher it. Say your last name.
I like to make people pause, so they really have to say, hi, Tara, but also, I just want to make sure, I know everybody is in
You guys
their
hear her?
seat for worship on Sunday, but this is a
Come on.
very personal conversation, so if you feel like you're too far from me, because I'm really fun to talk with, I would love for you to move up closer, but if not, you are where you are, and I am where I am, so we'll go with that.
I know Presbyterians in the back row. They love it, but... Oh, yeah. Do you need any more introduction? You're going to talk? I'll just... Yes. You can't hear it. Yeah.
Me?
All right. Let me make sure it's on.
Did I turn it off?
Possibly.
I did.
There you go.
Hi, my name is...
So I'll start again. Welcome to First United Presbyterian Church. This is Pastor Tara. I won't try her last name. Yes. Because I butcher
I'm
names.
a very old Presbyterian in this presbytery, so just so you know, I've been able to be with several of you over these wonderful years. I know they're waving at me. I love it. So my name is Reverend Tara Spooler McCabe. I have continued to serve in this presbytery since 2000. I served for basically 12 years at New York Avenue Presbyterian Church in downtown DC. And then after that, I served in this presbytery at large. I did a series for the next 3 years of sabbatical pastorates for about 10 different congregations in the DMV area. That gave me a chance to meet the whole beautiful variety of our presbytery, as well as I served as the pastor site coordinator for our young adult volunteer program that's here in our presbytery, still going on. And since September 2019, I am now serving you at the presbytery office, and my role is Director of Congregational Development and Mission, where I organize, direct with amazing volunteers, including some from your congregation on the Church Development Committee, as we organize and celebrate congregations and their strengths and their opportunities. And you all were already ahead of the game, because in 2016 and 2017, you all had already taken your first church assessment tool, the CAT. Myself and Reverend Diane Hendricks, we came way back when. It was my first time coming to Dale City. And so we came and we sat with your session and your PNC and other leaders, and we did a CAT then. And Jerry was your interim at that time. And now you have done the CAT a second time. Congratulations, because during COVID actually gave congregations a great opportunity to not only do this tool, but to spend time with each other and discerning through their strengths. And from that, then after you all took it a second time, myself and Joyce Ramagang, she is also a member of the Church Development Committee. She is a member at Clifton Presbyterian Church. And also she's a lay member with Emmanuel Indonesian Congregation in Rockville. She is teaching this presbytery how to do. If you thought you were an uber Presbyterian, I'm going to throw down. Joyce got us all beat. All beat. And so Joyce and I got to meet with your key leaders, your session and your mission committee a couple weeks ago, and we went through this church assessment tool. Pat is going to be passing out an abbreviated packet of this you got. You are not getting the full packet, not because you're not allowed to see it. So stop any conspiracy theories that there are. You really just don't want all of it right now, okay? Because you would then have to sit through a 2-hour presentation. And so we have abbreviated this. And if we can, are they getting passed out now? She just walked. She probably had to go do something for somebody.
I'll go.
Okay. I could check that's okay. He's already, let him do the work. He's not even preaching today, so let him do all the work. Yeah. So this again, just to give some basics, This is a tool that the Presbytery has been using with our congregations since 2016. And holy cow, the company, they love working with presbyteries. They work closely also with Chicago Presbytery, Atlanta Presbytery, our Presbytery, and a bunch of Episcopalian dioceses and Methodist center. What are they called? Methodist, whatever the rubric is. Conferences, thank you very much. And so this is also going to be some shared conversation and data points with other mainline denominations, okay? We've been using this again since 2016. Out of the 103 congregations in our presbytery to this day, we have 85, 87 churches in our presbytery that are in our database. When we have those points, this helps the presbytery in those budget conversations and staffing conversations, how we align our resources and energy. This is a tool for you all, the leaders of your church, the members of your church, to support you in organized discussions and actions. Again, it is a tool for you all to use because you own this tool now. This is not a report card. This is not a budget evaluation. This is not a grant evaluation. This is so that you all can check out your assumptions and then also check them out with where the energy and satisfaction is lining up in this tool. Okay? How many remember anything? And I don't think we did an executive summary like for people that were interested back after the first one, but how many remember taking it the first time in 2016? Amen, y'all. All right then. Okay. So most of this is going to maybe be reconnecting to some of the information, but again, you don't have all 30 pages of it. We've just done an abbreviated practice. Joel, can I have the first slide? It's going to be a repeat of what I just shared. Oh, no, it's not. We do a prayer. Everybody turn your first page. It's going to be page 3. This is a grounding litany that we do with every single congregation going into the church assessment tool. I want to share with you who you are spiritually connecting with right now. The churches and other congregations that are in this part of the process, an executive summary, an interpretation, discerning next steps, Capitol Hill Presbyterian Church in D.C. at Capitol Hill, Faith Presbyterian Church in Southeast D.C. and Anacostia. You have yourselves Good Samaritan Presbyterian Church in Waldorf, and y'all, I can't say all those words at one time, First United. And then the sixth one is FUPSI DC, and then the Providence Presbyterian Church, as they have been using it. Oh, and also Providence is in Fairfax, and Old Presbyterian Meeting House in Alexandria. Right now, within this 3 to 4 month period, we are all connected into this ministry of being church and utilizing tools in front of us to still grow with impact as a church. I'll read the unbolded lines, and I invite all of you who are able, please join us, and also online, reading the bold lines. Lord, you are the God of all truth.
You know us through and through.
You reveal to us what we do not yet know.
You bring us out of darkness and into your wonderful light.
You invite us to return to the garden where we know and are known.
You offer us love that delivers us from fear and hiding.
You reconcile us to our loved ones.
You deliver us from blame and accusation.
You disclose to us the gifts. You disclose to us the gifts in the depths of our souls.
You fill us with your spirit and empower us for service.
You open our eyes to the brokenness that cripples our best intentions.
You pour all into our wounds and carry us in your arms.
You show us the patterns that keep us bound to failure.
You open the bars of our captivity and set the prisoner free.
Amen. You are patient with our resistance to change.
Your judgment is always mixed with mercy.
When our minds cast a shell about our hearts,
Your love melts pathway to the depth of our beings.
open our minds and our hearts to the witness of our family of God. And God's children say, Amen. Now I'm going to ask you with that slide, it's repeating basically everything that I just said. Again, I just want to reiterate, this is not a report card. This is your tool. You have access to myself and other interpreters in the presbytery. We invest in this tool by also training interpreters of us, National Capital Presbytery. We have a bank of about 10 interpreters who go around 2 by 2 to congregations. Joyce apologizes that she can't be here with us right now. She has 2 congregations that she also is a part of, and so Sundays are a little bit harder for us church-going people. But with that, we organize your gifts into utilizing this tool to coach, to support, and also connect with other tools and practices that would be helpful for next stages. Next slide. As we go about this, when you want to now turn to the next page, which is page 4. Right. That's fine. Did everybody? Well, can some of y'all sit near each other also to share? Who doesn't have a copy that needs? Because we did 15, 20.
Anybody else not sitting near someone or have one?
Because you won't need to do too much other than, share with your neighbor. She was at the session meeting, so she memorized this by heart. Right. So when you all were partaking of those 85 plus questions, most of them had a spectrum of able to respond with strongly disagree, tend to disagree, tend to agree, strongly agree. And what happens on some of the summation of the answers is we combine those areas of strongly agree and agree, that is clearly agree. On the fence is when it was the tend tos on both. And then clearly disagree is adding the disagree and clearly and strongly disagree. And so when you turn to page 4, and I'll just list this out, that's how we come to orientating on this page. When you see the little owl up there, that's going to be a reference point for pages in the book called Owl Sightings. And your church has that, but also will have a digital copy of that book. And then following down along that owl, these are your percentage summations that are going to be there. And so you have clearly agree, on the fence, and clearly disagree. And then at the bottom of this page that you'll see, not on the slide in front of you, number of respondents, you had 99 participants in the response. And for those who want to know, last time you did this, guess what? How many respondents participated? Not the same. It was 142 at that time, okay? But also, this is the part that I love, it's pretty much you need to know, only 25% of your active attending membership needs to participate in order for the algorithms to work, okay? And so what's really great in having this close relationship with Holy Cow Consulting, they will always call my desk if by the second week it's below mark, and we coordinate, and usually it's just another push out to the congregation. But y'all, we didn't run into that with y'all. Okay, so what you need to know is overall satisfaction, and I can't remember what's the next slide. Joel, can y'all go to the, okay, yeah, we'll hold that. At the top of the page, overall satisfaction. How am I satisfied how things are going in our church? What you can see are the percentages. These are pretty much almost exactly the same from 2016. And when I say exactly the same, I'm going to say clearly agree was also 46% back in 2016. On the fence, it was 41%. And clearly disagree, 7%. All right? Let's go through overall energy. And then we're also going to then take off of that. Obviously, the numbers wouldn't have added up the same way, but they weren't like maybe just a 2% difference. But what you need to know in overall energy, this would be a negative worded statement, right? It seems to me that we are just going through the motions of church activity. There isn't much excitement about it among our members. And you see again, 10% clearly agree, on the fence is 44, clearly disagree 46. In 2016, it was only on the fence 39%. Now, what I want you all to hear as this is in conversation with other congregations in our presbytery, coming through COVID into this day and time, we are all seeing an increase in on the fence. As an interpreter, I would love to see it much lower on the fence to be 28 or 25%. But in all of our congregations, it has gone up high above that. And our deduction from this and talking with Holy Cow and how they're connecting with congregations all over the country, people are still in waiting. What does this mean coming out of COVID? How are we going to do this? Are we okay the way we are? What do we want to do differently? The question that you all get to have, this isn't a crisis point when it's that high of a percentage on the fence. It's you get to have the lens of the question, go back to the previous slide. You get to have the question, what would it take for us to move off the fence? That is a mantra question that we gave to your session and leaders when we met with them in the evening. It's not a judgment. That's a helpful question. What does it take for us to move off of the fence? Because you're going to learn that you have energy and space to try stuff out or try it on the way you have been doing on a lot. But the fact that people this now long coming out of COVID, we're still waiting, we're still not sure, it's time to dive in. What's going to take to get off the fence? Your attendance trend, it's fine, it's good. What I want to know is when you go value of activity beyond worship, on the whole, participation in church activities is very meaningful to me. That is actually an increase from 2016, okay? And it's high. Look at this. Look at how you rate when it says high at the bottom on your sheet, rating of church activity beyond worship. That is high among you all, the people who are here and participating. That to me shows there is some energy here of value. And so you need to tap into that, of what it means to share with one another why we're still here, why we love doing this thing called church that other people perceive as so archaic of a ritual to do. In your priorities, I've listed out the top two on the slide on your sheet, and I've written in the very bottom, you see, can anybody read that bottom part right now out loud? Who would like to? Do you mind reading it out loud? Yeah, the darker blue bar.
Number one and number two are the same for almost all of our congregations. You are not alone or that unique in this way.
Correct. All our churches, we want to make babies, get new people. We got to have this, right? That's our identity of how we know how churches grow. The reality is the data is way more nuanced than that when it comes to church growth, okay? It is solely around how you articulate your vision and your mission, not only in communication, but also in practice. It is so nuanced about church growth because it's directly related to energy and satisfaction. So even if new people were to come here and they get a vibe of so much on the fence, they may not stay. Because where's the energy and satisfaction? What's the focus? How do I clue in, connect with the energy of this church? What is unique for you all is your third priority. Develop ministries that work toward healing those broken in life circumstances. What is important to note about this priority is it is unique, particularly to you all. Third priority usually tends to be something unique of that congregation. And I think it's something to celebrate. It's something to hone into. To translate those broken by life circumstances, this is what we would call an internal priority. It's not an external priority, because there are other priorities that deal with community engagement, outreach to concerns and crisis. There are other statements that would show up before, and it does show up by your 8th or 10th priority, and your session has that. But for you to know, this is still around, and we see this coming through COVID, to develop ministries that work toward healing those broken by life circumstances. This is the pulse of this congregation. The tenderness, the care, the pastoral, congregational-based outreach, fellowship, connection, okay? So that is an internal priority. Doesn't mean that you don't care about the people outside. That's not what that means. It's still on your priority list. But when you want to look at what energizes and drives you all, it's going to be about how you all feel tended with and cared for together. Okay? All right. Next slide. Yes. Drivers of satisfaction. So when you look on the sheet, again, orienting the page, you see the owl up top. There are page numbers that the session has for those. When you go down that right side of the page, you see degree of focus, and this is compared with each of your responses. So you all measured the drivers of satisfaction as high. It could have read very high, high, moderate. We usually don't rate anything beyond moderate, lower than moderate. So this was high for all of you. And what we invite people to do is, as you read through driver 1 through 5 on drivers of satisfaction, you would start the sentence with, I am most satisfied when, driver number 1, our pastor communicates with people in a way that keeps us informed and connected. So category here around drivers of satisfaction and energy. For satisfaction, this is around communication. That is a very ambiguous bucket, just like let's solve education. Let's solve communication, right? What it is then have your leadership really target a very focused way of what are the touch points for communicating, right? You get to organize, but it's not just the pastor that really sets up sometimes a scapegoat when we're a large church system, right? And so even if it wasn't a pastor, I've seen congregations, they'll say leadership doesn't respond always. There's another point that could have come up on the satisfaction. A driver of leadership shows transparency of decisions. So that then would scapegoat the session, right? And so we don't want to fall into those traps. What we want to do is say, okay, what are some top specific ways that we all will focus on how we understand communication is prioritized and organized as a congregation? And let's just be clear, again, communication gets to be a scapegoat all the time. There are 20 billion different ways to communicate in our world right now, okay? So we also will provide for your leadership teams a resource tool called Mission Insight. And it is able to pick out the demographic data of your radius or even just your members, and it prioritizes what are all the different forms of communication and social media of how your members are prioritizing how they get information. So you can see how much do it through news on TV, news on radio, news in print, news on Facebook, news on social media. And so that could help you in organizing that tool, okay? Driver number 2, I am most satisfied when the leaders of our church show a genuine concern to know what people are thinking when decisions need to be made. This is around leadership and leadership transparency. Not leadership as, are they telling us everything? It's leadership access. I love that in this tool, we are able to differentiate between expectations around pastoral leadership and expectation around our congregational leadership. Because Presbyterians, this is one of our strong suits. We are based out of congregational leadership, not just pastoral leadership. Driver number 3, I am most satisfied. The worship services of our church are exceptional in both quality and spiritual content. Driver number 4, I am most satisfied when our pastor has ensured the development of a plan to care for members in need in times of need. Driver number 5, I am most satisfied when important decisions in our church, adequate opportunity for consideration of different approaches is usually provided. Again, I'm going to connect and organize these drivers for you. Driver number 2 and driver number 4, while it is identified with pastoral leadership, this falls into that third priority of being in relationship with members in times of broken life circumstances, right? This is around people knowing that they have access to, they say, pastor, also pastoral care. So that's a way that you in leadership can organize yourselves or double check it, right? The other piece is around leadership of this congregation. Those other drivers, driver number 2 and driver number 3 is worship, and driver number 5, that is around governance. And also, not in a negative, how we have access and we trust one another in our conflict management. Conflict management and governance are going to be 2 rubrics for you all that help you support your morale of a congregation. And we'll come into that in a little bit later. But these are really helpful to understand. It's around how the members feel that they have access to pastoral care and with pastoral care, and also how we feel we have transparency or regular participation with our governance and how we manage conflict. It's not resolving conflict, it's managing conflict, because we're people, okay? Next slide. I am most energized when, driver number 1, our members welcome changes in worship. I'm going to give you all a gold star. Whether you believe it or not, you all answered this way. I have never seen that in the top of the drivers of energy before. And I have done over 40 church assessment tools since 2016. So, and this shows up later, so it was consistent within other rubrics of this presbytery. Now, what kind of changes? That's on y'all's terms, right? That's totally on y'all's terms. For Presbyterians, changes in worship could be a wide spectrum of things, right? So just know, though, that that is something that some people maybe wouldn't expect when they come into organized religion. And it may be something that is a little, woo, what's this? But it's something that you get to recognize. This does have a pulse of energy for you all. You get to decide what kind of change. And we always want to say, no institution of community can do changes more than like a 15% of ethos, of vibes, of energy. So I'm not asking you to completely just get rid of all the chairs and do meditation pillows and sit in a circle. That's not what we're talking about when you have rated changes in worship as energizing. It could be the rhythm within worship. You know you expect worship, and within that spectrum and in that framework of worship, there's a variety of experiences that can happen within the expectation of worship. I don't know, but that is something I want to give you all as something to celebrate and even something to lean into as you advertise who you are. I am most energized when conversing with a person. Our pastor listens for feelings as well as words and treats feelings as important. This again is around communication and also around access and experience of pastoral care tending. Again, we want to make sure as a high-functioning congregation, we're not scapegoating either the pastoral care team or the pastor or the session, but we're recognizing this value of feeling heard and touch point. It's very internal, That's one thing. And then the whole congregation, especially session, you're in charge of spiritual leadership. So this is something that you want to pay attention to. I'm most energized when our church provides opportunities for members to engage in active ministry within the church. That connects immediately to what was lifted up before of engagement with my faith in church is a high driver, high priority on that first page. And I'm most energized when our church welcomes and is enriched by persons from many different walks of life. This is going to be really important as you pay attention to just the basics of how you do hospitality. And what does it mean to be embracing of different walks of life? We can't welcome everybody. Let's be clear. One, in our limits of humanity, we don't like everybody. But then two, in our embrace of being Christ-centered, we know that everybody deserves to have a personal relationship with the love, saving grace of Jesus Christ. And so what's particularly your good skill set of how you show that and do that well, very, very well, that's what it means by you're enriched by persons from many different walks of life. So sometimes churches may advertise, we all here because the Bible is absolutely center, and it would attract somebody that needs to really be honed in spirituality and faith through only the Bible. They would be drawn to that. But if you are going to advertise what's authentic to you, this is a really important statement to pay attention to. And how would you authentically practice that and communicate that? Can't be for everybody. It really can't. There are nuances with each culture of a congregation. But what's important is how you want to be energized by people in different walks of life who are yearning for, what is it? The reconciling love of Jesus Christ? Who are yearning to find a place of reconciliation when they have felt fractured? I don't know what that is. It's particular to you all. But there's something quite beautiful in naming that, along with you like changes in worship, so somebody doesn't have to be scared whether they're doing the hymn the right way or whether they're dressed the right way. Those basics, it's still really vibrant out there. The perceptions of what church doesn't do well is so strong. It's ridiculous. Okay, we're going to turn to the next slide. Excellent. Your next page, this shows of where you show up in the quadrants that we call. They're identified through different energies. You can see the spectrum on the horizontal axis and the vertical axis. Low and high satisfaction and low and high energy. You all are in what I call the nucleus, the vortex of the transformational quadrant. You can see some descriptors on the slide in front of us. When you're in the transformational quadrant, some of the focus that you want to pay attention to, it is around growth, facilities, mentorship, replication, and increased external impact. So if you've been holding back to just try something that you thought you couldn't do, this would be saying you actually have enough trust, energy, and satisfaction within you to push into that, okay? Then we have other, in National Capital Presbytery, just for you to know, and we'll show, but we only have like a few chaotic congregations. These are our ADHD congregations. But I want to offer, you're not far from that, okay? You're close into that axis. These are those, I call them perfectly pleasing Peter congregations. They have great leadership, laity, and they will do it. They'll go ahead and do it. They'll go ahead and do it and not tell others that they're doing it. And each high-functioning church member is doing a lot of different things, right, at the same time. And so we just have a few. It's hard for Presbyterians to be that chaotic, I think. But we have a few churches. It doesn't matter size. We've seen a variety of sizes in our congregations that show up with that chaotic. Reinvention. This is one that they're really struggling to figure out what is their purpose. They don't have a focus mission, and they don't have the energy to really lean into trying that also, right? So it's starting, but there is a drive and a passion showing up in the reinvention quadrant, that with solid leadership and organized leadership, it can focus them. And then we have static. Most of our congregations in our presbytery are in the transformational and reinvention quadrants. Static, this is, everything's just static. Everything is just, you don't really expect too much from each other, and you also don't do anything more than just enough. Some of these congregations, though, this is exactly who they are and want to be, and then there are ways that we support congregations who are static. But again, in our presbytery, the majority of our congregations are, if you move to the next slide, majority of our congregations are along this diagonal that you see in reinvention into transformation. And when I said y'all are in the sweet spot vortex, you see this inner quadrant, the fifth quadrant we call it. So you see that in 2016, you all were just higher up the axis on energy and satisfaction and transformational back then. Still really close. You guys love hugging this like vertical line here. And so with that, I am not surprised that through COVID and new pastoral leadership, learning how to be together and doing that through COVID, I am not surprised that it went into the fifth quadrant. I don't want to say so that you hear a negative on this. You went into the fifth quadrant. What's very important in this fifth quadrant is it means that the energy and satisfaction is focused in a way that you all, if you really hone in on 1 to 3 focused practices, statements, missions, however you want to do it, that it only is going to take a year or two to increase the energy and satisfaction. When we see churches anywhere within this fifth quadrant, we recognize there's like a, let's do it. Let's try, let's do it. Because when churches are outside of the fifth quadrant, even in the transformational quadrant, we always say, with great abundance comes great responsibility. But they still sit on their laurels, people. They are like, oh, we're good. We got straight A's. We're fine. We can go stay out all night and then not study for the test the next day, right? And so what happens is they may just stay there and they don't increase in any way. They probably don't decrease, especially when you're in the transformational quadrant. But what I want to offer to you is there's actual momentum. I call it spiritual as well as physical momentum to really deepen into something. Don't do all the things, or else you're going to shift into chaos. But really deepen into something together so that you can really try it on and practice it, the mantra that we've learned from Holy Cow. We want you to do something that's your thing really, really, really well. Someone will say, well, what about I'm not talking about those churches. I'm talking about you, those priorities, those drivers that organize you being you. I want you to do one of those, two of those really, really, really well. You have trust and energy being in this fifth quadrant, bit and transformational. You have the value to try something on. And in that trying on, you can evaluate it. We would be here to support you in that to see if it works, okay? What you always deserve to know is this is fluid. We see churches go back and forth sometimes, or I will say, and it wasn't y'all, I will say we've had a couple congregations, larger congregations. We've had a couple congregations that from 2016, 2017, through COVID, they stayed in the exact same spot. And that struck me as an interpreter. Did you try anything out of your comfort zone? You all have. And it shows up, again, as a strength in who you are. Didn't mean you had to go all crazy and do meditation pillows, okay? Again, I'm not talking about the extreme. I'm talking about there is a practice within and an expectation with one another that you can push in. All right, let's turn to the next page and the slide. There we go. Where do we begin? If the goal is to move a church as high into, I'm reading from the page in the packet. If the goal is to move a church as high into the transformational quadrant as possible, where do leaders begin? The chart below suggests where improvements might have the biggest impact on how members are feeling with the church overall. For those that have the sheet in front of you, the higher the factor on this chart, the more important it is. The longer the bar, the more urgent is the need to address the issue. So what we have here on the sheet that's been passed out, and for those that are online, I'll read it out. But what you deserve to know is at the bottom of this page, there are categories. 20 to 34% is significant to address, discuss soon. 35 to 50%, that's important. You want to address soon. So the difference of discuss versus address. And then over 50 is urgent, address now. And in y'all's sheet, you have 1 to 2-ish important. You want to address soon. And I was so intrigued. This is around your governance and leadership among leaders, members of the church. The top 2 are leaders seek input and different decision approaches. So again, it's access and transparency around how decisions are being made. And 2, it's around the people feeling that they've had input and how decisions and conversations are being made and had, okay? And then after that, around the discuss soon significant, this is around new meaning to life. This is around that broken life circumstances again, that pastoral care, that spiritual, coming out of COVID, that fragility space that's still very palpable for people. But again, the top 1, 2, 3, 4, aside from new meaning to life, leaders representative, right? This is your governance. And then I'm glad that preaching is still on these lists. Like, if we as church people didn't have expectations of our preaching, I don't understand why we're Presbyterians, to be honest. It's education and preaching. That's kind of what we're known for, right? Again, it can be creative, but I'm really glad that you're still holding a standard for us, overeducated clergy, that we need to be relevant and engaging and practical and theological in our preaching, okay? This critical success factor, when we notice the top 2, that amplifies again that consistency from your priorities and your critical success factors on leadership. Amplifying the continuation of how vital the trust in your leadership and governance and decision-making process. It's very important for all of you wonderfully functioning leaders of this church. Items that do not appear on this list, they may still be important, but working on them will not change the energy and satisfaction of your congregation, okay? Doesn't mean they're not vital, doesn't mean that they don't care about them, but if you want to increase your energy and satisfaction, your confidence with each other, you've got to focus on those top 2 and 3, okay? All right, we're going to breeze through. Here's where I'm going to prove to you that you are flexible. Go to the next slide. Yep. What you'll see is these first 2 pages on page 13 and page 14, these are the questions and the rubrics that were used to understand a congregation's flexibility and adaptation. And answering the questions in the ways that y'all did, it shows you on those pages how you all responded, gives you first the questions in the top half, how you all responded through that spectrum of strongly agree to strongly disagree. And then the bottom part of the page that's in front of you, this is your comparison with all those other mainline churches right now in the past year and how they measured to that. You can see how you compare. But you all in mainline Christianity, hold on to your seats, you all are theologically diverse, higher than the majority of mainline congregations, okay? On this graph that's now page 15, this is what shocked me but then it amplified what had already shown up in the report. One, this is where you increased, and I think this is what came through COVID, you being you, and also living into a transition of new pastoral leadership. You went from 2017, the Red Diamond, up to 2023. In this is showing your adaptability and flexibility. Growing congregations, what I also like is you moved closer into the center of that vertical axis. Growth and not just adapting in the spectrum of progressive to conservative theologically. This is not politics. This is our relationship with Scripture, okay? Growth for congregations, let us be clear, no surprise, is going to happen through how you hold theological diversity. Because if it's more important to you all that you welcome different walks of life, right? We're connecting back to that driver, then you would have to show me that you're able to hold more of a center, not a watered down center, but you're able to hold a paradigm where different walks of life, different spectrum points on Christianity when it comes to theology, we're able to be in worship together. We're able to organize through our spectrum of theology how we serve the love and reconciling power of Jesus Christ into the world. I want our congregations to practice moving more into the center on this rubric than being extreme on either side. That is where church growth is going to be, because people are terrified and paralyzed right now by the extremism that is the feeling in politics, in education, in community, in healthcare, all of it. Congregations also need to be true to who they are. So if a very, very, very progressive congregation is going to try and be in the middle like that, it's not going to come off authentic, right? But that's, you all need to know, you deserve to celebrate what is a strength and unique across Christian communities right now. Churches, people will come into churches experiencing a high performance, we call it, which is in the category that you're in. It's energizing, it's exciting. The struggle sometimes is then when we come off the mountaintop, who's there to catch us? That whole reality that you all have named of that pastoral care knowledge and knowing one another and being present for one another, that's going to be really important. That's why it's shown up so repeatedly. Because we're having these high experiences with one another, and we're excited that people can come with maybe difference of associations and interpretations with Scripture. It's okay to disagree about how you read the biblical story. We are Presbyterians. We have the authority of the inspired Word of God. That is a strength. People deserve to know you can do Christianity with one another like that. So this is something for you all to celebrate. Because you're so high, close to what we call the top 10%, this means that you are ready to engage in new practices and new growth. Again, not 20 different things, right? We're honing in, you're going to focus in, and you're going to look at one or two things that you do and can do really, really, really well. What's showing up is hospitality, the impact of being present for a lot of variety of people so that they know what it means to you to be the love and reconciling power of Jesus Christ. Last page, we're going to breeze through this. Last slide. We'll get to that. Y'all, your session, we'll do that. Next slide. Okay. So on this, the dashboard, what you see is this is today, and what I've listed out in the slide is the difference. The numbers that are on the left side, that's from 2016, and the numbers that are on the right side are the today 2023 side. So one, you should see there's some that are very much the same. Your hospitality and also your readiness for ministry. You feel equipped, so go do it, okay? And also, it's smaller. The worship and music, just to share with y'all, it was 54% for this one, you see on your sheet, And Jill, can you read it on your screen what the worship and music is from 2016? I don't remember what it was. Sorry. Oh, wait, I have it. My bad. What'd you say? 41. So you went up in that, and that's, I mean, I see that, so I wouldn't call that as, again, it's not something hugely that you need to invest time in. But I was not surprised to see the numbers and the stats in what we call the trifecta or the Bermuda Triangle. We draw a triangle connecting morale, conflict management, and governance. Your morale will increase or decrease in the confidence level of your people around conflict management and governance, okay? This needs to be a shared relationship, a shared task, organized and focused. And so we have tools and best practices as we have been managing with congregations coming through COVID. We are witnessing what are some basic tools, skill sets that key leaders in congregations deserve to have access to. Sometimes it's mediators, sometimes it's coaches for the key leaders. Sometimes it's also a training about basic conflict management in 2023, okay? But also how you are organizing your focused communication, that's around the opportunity of transparency in our governance, okay? So 2017 is on the left side, right? So I highlighted in yellow when there was a significant decrease, right? Spiritual vitality, I said this to your session, don't look at that in the negative. You need to know most of our churches who are high performance, they have spirituality under 10% because it's become a consumer model. So I don't even want FUPCDC to freak out that your spirituality is lower than it was in 2017. It's still really high, okay? Okay, so again, this is going to be around focusing this trifecta. You can go to the next slide now. Mike, we are close to our end. That you want to focus on that trifecta around morale will increase the way with integrity you focus around your governance and conflict management. I led with the session, you want to notice what are the patterns that are showing up for you? What will it take to move off the fence? Morale, conflict management, and governance are your three sisters or your Bermuda Triangle. You get to decide. Focus on your drivers and critical success factors for energy towards your priorities. Don't focus on your priorities. You want to focus on your drivers of critical success, your drivers and critical success factors. They will give you the confidence to then lean into those priorities. Okay? I know this is a lot, but the cool news is this is always an ongoing conversation and practice. Okay? You will see opportunities later on through the year across the presbytery when we have what we call gatherings, NCP gatherings. And those are every other month around presbytery meetings. And those gatherings are around certain skills and tools that come out of the church assessment tool, okay? That goes on throughout the year. And we'll just always make sure you have access to them. We will not have any time for questions because you all deserve to worship. But please do write down your question. Your pastor and your session, they have received the full 2-hour interpretation. God bless them. They hung in there that whole time. And we can continue the conversation. What I want to share with you is this is a strong CAT performance, but you deserve to really lean into what can be your strength and focus. Because if you don't, then you are going to lose that momentum. You will. For Presbyterians, it takes about 10 years. So you have time, but I would love to see something energized, more focused through you all in the next 3 years. Okay? That's it. I thank you for your time. You all deserve worship. Thank you online very much.
Thank you, Tara. And again, if you have questions, Tara might even hang around for a few minutes, but email me and I will send them on to either presbytery or session. What your session will be doing in the next few months is doing goal setting using this information and data Know that a lot of churches really struggled in COVID. Of course, energy and certain morale goes down a little bit after we go through a pandemic together. So we're trying to figure out what it means to be church after that. And so again, we thank you for this tool and we thank you for coming. Let me close in prayer, and then we're going to take a 5-minute break to use the restroom, stretch the legs, and we will gather back to worship our Lord. Let us pray. Almighty and loving God, we just thank you for this church. I thank you for Pastor Tara and for this tool. Help us to use this tool as we discern the next steps for us and the ways that we can be your church to share the good news of Jesus Christ and his grace and love with all the people here and outside the church. Help us to welcome all, grow together, and serve with joy each and every day. We pray all these things in your precious Son.